Hey everyone, welcome back to We Are Cosmic, the channel where we break down everything crypto in a way that's simple, clear, and actually makes sense. If you're into XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, or just want to understand the crazy moves happening in the crypto world, you are in the right place. Today we've got some huge news that could shake the markets and possibly open the floodgates for XRP in ways most people aren't ready for yet. Let's start with a quick reality check. The crypto market has been a roller coaster lately. Prices have been fluctuating, institutional investors are making big moves, and there's new legislation coming that could change the game completely. And yes, I'm talking about the market structure bill that everyone in the XRP army has been waiting for. This is not just some rumor, it's a real development that has the potential to impact the entire crypto ecosystem, especially XRP in the short and long term. Earlier today, the CFTC chair came out with a statement that caught my full attention. He spoke about the clarity and regulation being enacted through the Genius Act and how this could finally give a legal framework for cryptocurrencies to operate without the constant fear of enforcement actions. That's huge because it means companies like Ripple could fully leverage their banking licenses and provide services like yield, rewards, and cross-border payments without unnecessary restrictions. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, why does this matter to me as an investor? Well, let me break it down. When regulations become clear and supportive, it reduces uncertainty. And in crypto, reduced uncertainty usually leads to increased adoption, higher investment, and yes, price movement. The institutions are already reacting. Big names like Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy, Tom Lee's BitMine, and even American Bitcoin led by Eric Trump are making significant purchases of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other cryptos. These aren't small moves. They're hundreds of millions of dollars flowing into the market at a time when prices are generally soft. This tells us something very important. Institutions are positioning themselves strategically. They know that clarity and regulation is coming, and they're getting ready for the next big wave. XRP, in particular, benefits directly from this because Ripple's business model relies heavily on regulatory clarity for cross-border payments and banking services. If the market structure bill passes, we could see a major boost in institutional confidence, which often translates into price growth. But it's not all just numbers and legislation. There's also timing to consider. The bill has already passed the House with strong bipartisan support back in July 2025. Parts of the Senate, like the Senate Agriculture Committee, have advanced related acts. But the Senate Banking Committee still has some hurdles, mostly around stablecoin yields and rewards. These discussions are critical because they determine whether cryptocurrencies can actually offer interest, yield, or rewards to clients without interference from traditional banks. So as of now, the crypto community is watching end of February deadlines closely. This is when compromises are expected on stablecoins, and the bill could finally move through the Senate. If that happens, we could see XRP and other cryptos benefiting massively from clarity, institutional purchases, and renewed market confidence. All right, before we dive deeper into what this all means for XRP specifically and how you can watch for opportunities, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Turn on notifications because I'll be updating you every step of the way with clear, actionable analysis. We're here not just to talk about crypto, but to help you understand it, anticipate moves, and make informed decisions. All right, so let's dive into the CFTC statement and why it's such a big deal for XRP and the crypto market as a whole. Earlier this morning, the CFTC chair came out and said that the United States is now on the verge of passing clarity into law for crypto regulation. He mentioned the Genius Act, which is designed to provide clear rules so that companies don't have to fear enforcement while trying to innovate. This is huge because right now, uncertainty is one of the biggest hurdles for crypto adoption. Think of it like this. If you want to build a business but you're constantly worried that the rules might suddenly change, it slows everything down. That's exactly what has happened with many crypto companies, including Ripple. The Genius Act, along with the broader market structure bill, is intended to give legal certainty. This means that Ripple can finally operate with confidence, offering banking services, cross-border payments, and yield products legally. Now, why does this matter for XRP holders? It's simple. Regulatory clarity leads to adoption. Once companies know the rules, they're more likely to use XRP for cross-border payments. More adoption usually means more demand for XRP, which can positively affect the price. And it's not just theory. Historically, when similar clarity came in previous acts, XRP saw strong price movements. For example, In July 2025, when the Genius Act passed the House, XRP jumped from around $2.22 to over $3.60 in a short time. The timing is also critical here. The bill passed the House with strong bipartisan support, and parts of the Senate, like the Senate Agriculture Committee, have moved related legislation forward. However, the Senate Banking Committee is still reviewing some points, mainly about stablecoin yield versus rewards. This is very important because banks are worried about crypto offering high yields or rewards directly to clients, which could compete with traditional banking products. The final compromise on these points is expected by the end of February 2026, and that's the deadline the market is watching closely. Here's the takeaway. Once these regulatory hurdles are cleared, Ripple gets full permission to operate under a clear legal framework. This isn't just about legality, it's about confidence. Institutional investors like MicroStrategy, Tom Lee's BitMine, and others are already buying crypto aggressively because they know clarity is coming. These large purchases often signal a strategic move for the next big wave, and XRP stands to benefit directly because of Ripple's regulated banking model. Let's also touch on stablecoins for a second. Part of the debate in the Senate Banking Committee revolves around whether crypto companies can issue stablecoins and offer yield or rewards freely. This matters a lot because stablecoins are a major part of Ripple's ecosystem and cross-border payment infrastructure. If the compromise is favorable, XRP could see increased adoption not just from retail investors, but from institutions using Ripple's solutions for business-to-business transactions. So, when you combine the CFTC statement, the Genius Act, and upcoming Senate negotiations, it becomes clear why everyone in the XRP community is excited. These developments create a strong foundation for XRP's growth, backed by both regulatory certainty and institutional activity. And the timing could align perfectly with a market rebound, making this an important moment to watch. In the next part, we'll break down the big institutional moves, how companies like MicroStrategy, BitMine, and American Bitcoin are buying, and what that tells us about the market's next steps. We'll also analyze how XRP reacts to these moves compared to Bitcoin and Ethereum, so you get a full picture of what's happening behind the scenes. Now that we understand the regulatory picture, let's talk about what's happening in the market itself. The big players are making some serious moves, and if you're an XRP investor, this is important. Companies like Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy, Tom Lee's BitMine, and even Eric Trump's American Bitcoin are buying enormous amounts of crypto right now. MicroStrategy alone bought 2,486 Bitcoin, worth over $169 million. BitMine purchased over 45,000 Ethereum, which adds up to $91 million. And American Bitcoin is now holding over 6,000 Bitcoin, worth more than $400 million. Why is this significant? Because it shows confidence from the biggest institutions in crypto, even when the market isn't performing at its best. Most cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin and Ethereum, have been in a small correction phase. XRP hit a low of 143 and bounced slightly, following the general market trend. But the point here is that these large companies are buying during dips, signaling that they are preparing for long-term gains. Let's be honest. When institutions buy at this scale, it often triggers market shifts. The reasoning is straightforward. When billions of dollars move into the market, it increases demand and reduces supply. XRP, being one of the top cryptocurrencies with high adoption potential, benefits from this indirectly. Every time these big investors make strategic purchases in Bitcoin or Ethereum, other assets like XRP often see price stabilization and small upward momentum, even if it's not immediate. There's also a pattern we need to look at. Michael Saylor, for example, usually buys during price peaks after solid rallies. So when he makes large purchases now, it could mean one of two things. Either he has identified a bottom for the market, buying at lower prices before the next bull run, or there could be another small correction coming before prices stabilize. We can't say for sure yet, but the takeaway is that institutional activity signals the market is preparing for major moves, and XRP is positioned to benefit because of its use case and regulatory clarity. Another interesting point is that these purchases often influence sentiment. When retail investors see institutions buying, it gives them confidence that crypto is here to stay. That confidence often leads to more investment, which pushes prices higher. XRP has historically followed these trends, so we can expect some positive ripple effects, pun intended, once regulatory clarity aligns with institutional buying. We also need to consider timing. These large purchases are happening while legislation like the Genius Act and Market Structure Bill are moving forward. Once the final details are cleared and institutions know the legal framework is stable, we could see massive inflows of both institutional and retail capital into XRP. This is why tracking institutional buying is just as important as watching the legislation itself. So far, the pattern is clear. Institutions buy heavily, market reacts with small bumps, price stabilizes, potential for larger growth when clarity arrives. For XRP holders, this means that even if prices are fluctuating now, the long-term outlook could be very strong. Now that we've covered regulatory updates and institutional moves, let's focus on XRP's price trends and what we might expect in the short term. History is a great teacher in crypto, and XRP has shown us that legislative clarity and large institutional activity often lead to strong price movements. For example, back in July 2025, when the Genius Act passed the House, XRP jumped from about $2.22 to over $3.66 in just a few weeks. That was a more than 60% increase, purely based on positive market news and growing confidence among investors. Looking at the current situation, XRP recently touched 1.43 and bounced slightly. This is important because it shows a support level where buyers start stepping in and holding the price steady. Coupled with the news from the CFTC and the upcoming Genius Act, this level could act as a springboard for growth, especially once the end of February deadlines for stablecoin yield compromises are passed. When the market sees that crypto companies like Ripple can legally offer rewards and yield, it builds investor confidence, which can lead to a strong upward movement. One thing to note is that XRP often reacts not just to its own news, but also to broader market trends. Institutional purchases of Bitcoin and Ethereum can have ripple effects, literally, on XRP. When large investors buy Bitcoin or Ethereum, it often signals market bottoming or accumulation, which can influence retail investors to buy XRP as well. This interconnected behavior is why we see small bounces in XRP even when other cryptos are fluctuating. Historically, XRP has shown a pattern of quick surges followed by corrections. After big news, it often experiences a short-term spike, sometimes followed by a slight drop before stabilizing at a higher level than before. For example, during the last major legislative updates, XRP saw rapid gains, then minor corrections, and then continued upward momentum as institutional confidence grew. Understanding this pattern is key for investors because it helps anticipate potential entry points and avoid panic selling during short-term dips. Another factor influencing XRP's price is adoption and use case growth. Ripple is actively working with financial institutions for cross-border payments. As more banks and companies adopt XRP for payments, the demand for the token increases, which naturally impacts price. Combined with regulatory clarity, this could create an environment where XRP sees consistent growth rather than just speculative spikes. Now, let's talk short-term predictions. Based on current data, upcoming legislative milestones, and historical patterns, XRP could see gradual upward movement over the next few weeks into months. The critical period is the end of February 2026, when stablecoin yield decisions are expected. Once the market confirms favorable outcomes, we could see rapid accumulation by both institutions and retail investors, leading to potential price surges similar to past bullish periods. In summary, XRP's short-term outlook is positive but comes with typical crypto volatility. Price spikes, corrections, and gradual upward trends are all part of the natural rhythm. The key is to watch support levels, institutional moves, and regulatory milestones, as these will likely dictate the pace and scale of XRP's next price movements. Now that we've covered price trends and short-term predictions, let's shift focus to the fundamentals behind Ripple and XRP. Understanding the underlying technology and business model is key for anyone who wants to see beyond daily price movements and recognize long-term potential. First, Ripple is not just a cryptocurrency, it's a payment and financial solutions company. Its main goal is to provide fast, secure, and low-cost cross-border payment solutions for banks, financial institutions, and even corporations. Unlike Bitcoin, which primarily functions as a store of value, XRP is designed to move money efficiently across borders, replacing outdated systems like SWIFT, which can be slow and expensive. This real-world use case is a major reason why XRP has staying power in the crypto ecosystem. A critical part of Ripple's strategy is its banking license. Once regulatory clarity is achieved through the Genius Act and the broader Market Structure Bill, Ripple can operate with a fully legal framework, allowing it to offer yield, rewards, and other financial services to clients. This license is a game changer because it legitimizes Ripple as more than a crypto company. It positions it as a banking and payment infrastructure provider. Investors and institutions take notice when a company has regulatory compliance, which naturally increases trust, adoption, and ultimately demand for XRP. Cross-border payments are another pillar of Ripple's fundamentals. Traditional international transfers can take days, cost high fees, and often involve multiple intermediaries. Ripple solves this problem using XRP as a bridge currency, allowing transfers to happen in seconds at minimal cost. Banks using RippleNet can move money globally without holding multiple foreign currencies, and this efficiency is highly attractive to financial institutions. As adoption grows, so does the transaction volume and use of XRP, which has a direct positive effect on its price and liquidity. It's also important to understand Ripple's approach to institutional partnerships. Unlike many projects that focus on hype, Ripple actively signs agreements with banks and payment providers around the world. These partnerships are often under the radar, meaning they don't always make headlines, but are steadily increasing Ripple's footprint in the financial system. Institutional adoption is a strong indicator of long-term stability because it shows that XRP isn't just a speculative asset, it's a utility token with real-world demand. Finally, combining these fundamentals with regulatory clarity and institutional interest creates a very promising outlook for XRP. The Genius Act and related legislation remove many of the uncertainties that have historically slowed adoption. Once stablecoin yield and rewards are clearly defined and banks feel comfortable using Ripple's solutions, XRP could experience significant growth not just in price, but in overall network adoption and transaction volume. In short, the long-term story for XRP isn't just hype, it's grounded in real-world utility, regulatory compliance, and institutional adoption. For investors, understanding these fundamentals is key to making informed decisions and staying ahead of the market. All right, everyone, now it's time to wrap everything up and give you a complete picture of what's happening with XRP and how you can position yourself moving forward. We've gone through the regulatory news, institutional buying, price trends, and Ripple fundamentals. Now let's put it all together. First, the biggest takeaway is this: XRP's future is strongly linked to regulatory clarity and institutional adoption. The Genius Act and the broader market structure bill are expected to pass soon, likely after the end of February deadlines. Once these laws are finalized, Ripple can legally provide cross-border payments, banking services, and yield rewards to clients. This is huge because it removes uncertainty and gives both institutions and retail investors more confidence in XRP. Second, keep a close eye on institutional activity. Companies like MicroStrategy, BitMine, and American Bitcoin are making strategic purchases of cryptocurrencies, signaling they are preparing for long-term growth. Historically, these purchases often precede significant market moves, and XRP tends to benefit alongside Bitcoin and Ethereum due to its utility and adoption by financial institutions. Next, consider price trends and historical patterns. XRP has a history of responding strongly to positive regulatory news. Previous acts and legislative milestones caused XRP to jump by more than 50-60% in short periods. While short-term corrections are normal, these dips often create opportunities for smart investors to accumulate XRP at favorable prices before the next upward wave. Now let's talk about risk management. Crypto is volatile, and XRP is no exception. Even with strong fundamentals, prices can fluctuate rapidly. Here are some key tips. Set clear entry and exit points. Decide in advance what price levels you're willing to buy or sell at. Diversify. Don't put all your funds into a single asset. Consider spreading across XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, or stablecoins. Stay updated. Follow regulatory news, institutional moves, and adoption milestones as these directly influence XRP's trajectory. Avoid panic selling. Temporary corrections are normal, especially after news-driven surges. Hold for the long term if fundamentals remain strong. Finally, how should you position yourself? Focus on opportunity, not fear. Regulatory clarity is coming, institutions are accumulating, and Ripple's banking and cross-border payment solutions provide real-world utility. These are the pillars of long-term growth. By staying informed and disciplined, you can position yourself to benefit when the next market wave hits.